all of our clients are now benefiting from the fact they've now got many years of data on the market in which they invest in. It's bottling the genuine intellectual property of every fund into AI models that they own.
Whenever you go to PitchBook or CapIQ, my kind of gut feeling always is that, wow, I must be like the person number 3,000 this year looking at the same asset. So you get one asset which is massively oversubscribed, and there's probably 10 other businesses in UK that are just as good, right? Probably could be really great PE deals. So I always felt that actually having some sort of a proprietary thing like that is the way to generate alpha, right? Because you're really finding things that are truly, truly off market.
The machine learning models can be very good generalists, but for a business to really take full advantage, they need to train it on their proprietary data. And that is the only way you can get alpha, competitive edge over the rest of the market.
I'm joined today by Phil Westcott, founder and CEO of Filament. And Filament is a leading deal origination and monitoring platform for private equity industry, which can be run in-house and can be white labeled, but we'll talk about that later. So welcome to the studio.
Thanks for having me, Ihad. I'm looking forward to a lively discussion.
Sounds good. To start off, could you tell me about the value that Filament provides to its private equity customers?
So Filament Syfter, Filament is the business name, Syfter is the product. It is a unique proposition right now in private equity and related sectors such as investment banking, in private markets and VC. What's unique about it is it's actually bringing the capability in-house. So it's a white labeled platform that powers their market intelligence engine. So unlike the other origination platforms in the market that are mainly SaaS-based, the difference is this is within their firewall. So it's the backbone to their in-house market intelligence.
And what are the use cases that most PE kind of investors get out of it? Is it largely around origination or deal discovery, or just looking at basic things about a business like EBITDA, revenue, enterprise value, etc.?
So for the managing partners and the board of a private equity firm, it's about building an AI edge in the market, or taking advantage of the potential for data and AI to give them an edge in winning better deals and ultimately driving better returns for their LPs. That's the strategic positioning. At an operational level, it is for the heads of origination, it's for the COO, the ops team, the analyst team, to drive more efficient deal origination, market intelligence throughout the life cycle of a deal. And then specifically for deal makers, it's giving them the insights, and not just the data, but the insight out of the data, which gives them an edge in finding those deals and closing those deals in the market.
Right, got it. Because I think when I worked in private equity as a senior associate, I found it quite hard, just the sheer amount of data sources that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
I think I had PitchBook, CapIQ, some of the UK-based platforms, and even sometimes just Companies House. And being able to just pull it all together in one place that gives you a snapshot of when the asset is. A lot of times, actually, I was the person who was doing the pulling together manually in the PowerPoint slide. Do you solve, I'm assuming, probably a lot of that, which is just getting the things that you need in one place?
So removing the drudgery of that task, of going to multiple platforms to compile a 360 view of a target or market mapping exercise, that, if you think about it, has historically always been a batch job, i.e., your partner goes and tells you, give me this market map on this subsector. You go and produce the Excel sheet. You go and produce the PowerPoint. It goes up to the partner and maybe the investment committee. And that piece of work is then locked away in your document management system.
Kind of stored away in the shared drive and never seen again, right? Yeah.
Probably never referenced again.
Yeah.
Our proposition is allowing them to operationalize that process. You do a market map once, and now you're able to track that collection of companies forevermore. And so all of our clients are now benefiting from the fact they've now got a longitudinal database, i.e., many years of data on the market in which they invest in. And quite a few of them are now extracting that data and doing offline analysis to detect trends and inform their future strategies.
Okay. That's quite useful, actually, because a lot of the work that I think I did when I was a senior associate probably just is in Outlook, in the sent outbox, or in the share drive somewhere. And it's valuable stuff, right? I mean, you did work, you did profiling, but unless you have some sort of a system that allows you to track that, it just kind of gets thrown away. Okay, we'll talk more about the product itself, but I think it's just really good to just understand how it works. What are some of the data sources and data platforms that you integrate with in order to provide this view?
So we've worked with all the usual suspects, as you'd imagine. So CapIQ, PitchBook, SourceScrub, Grata, Merger Market, all the firmographics providers. You've got Valuate, you've got Judil.
Yeah, all the UK, European
Crunchbase.
Ones, right?
So if you think from a financials and company's house type data sets and deals, you can acquire that data into your in-house database with a combination of those sources. But what you also need is a view on the unstructured data, the news related to those targets. And this is where the AI, or specifically the natural language processing, comes in. You can start to classify the news for the kind of signals that you're looking for in a target. For example, you're looking for a new non-exec that would be a signal that they're looking for something strategic. Right. They're expanding into a new market. They're looking for a deal. The other unstructured data gives you negative news as well, so you can track if there's any adverse comments within their customer base or the breakdown of a partnership or a client. So all these things are really useful context over and above the financials and the deals and the traditional data. And then you've got human capital data, which is really, really insightful as well. So you get a real feel for the DNA of a firm if you can see how their headcount has evolved, their headcount by geography, so you can see when they've made an international expansion or maybe outsourced some work, or the types of job roles that they're evolving to over a period of time.
Or hiring for more technology or more software developers, they're probably shifting towards.
Exactly.
Hiring salespeople in America, that's an international expansion kind of signal, I guess, right?
Exactly that. So all of those, when aggregated into a central database, you can score those targets on multiple dimensions. And then our real sort of development over the last few years is to give the team, the origination team and the deal makers the ability to combine those scores to give them a target list based on whatever strategy they're running over a year, but also perhaps over a shorter period of time. So anything from a bolt-on campaign that they want to run for a particular portfolio company, that can use a combination of those signals, and obviously within the bounds of geography and sector or subsector, so that they can find those target lists. And as I say, start tracking them internally and knowing when to pick up the phone.
Got it. I actually want to talk more about that, because that's quite cool, right? Is just being able to do kind of a small perimeter exercise for a platform, and then do it again to kind of learn from it, and then you can probably then extract those learnings and just apply them to the actual platform sourcing approach, right? Which is like, how do I actually proactively find good investments that actually fit the main fund, rather than just kind of some of the smaller ones. It's probably a great way to learn. But let's cover that in a second. Can I ask you more of a kind of more like a question from a customer point of view? If I'm the CTO or a managing partner of, let's say, a mid-market private equity fund that really wants to raise its game in origination and deal discovery, what are the 3-4 things that I should be doing right now?
So perhaps I'm not an entirely independent voice on the topic, but
buying Filament Syfter is one of those. Feel free to add that.
Irrespective of whether you use Syfter as your backbone, you need to be building an in-house data capability.
Yeah.
You need to start ingesting your market data across its different flavors, as we discussed, into an internal database. And that is the only way you can get alpha, competitive edge over the rest of the market. Because everyone else in the market can go and get more seats on a SaaS data platform. You need to start consuming their data in-house, mixing it to get a 360 view of every target, and then layering in your strategy in the way you score opportunities and the way you track the market and pull signals so that your deal makers, origination folks, can take action at the right moment.
Right. And that always struck me as being like incredibly true, right? Because I've done the job for quite a few years. And whenever you go to PitchBook or SourceScrub or CapIQ, right, you enter the little filters that you do. My kind of gut feeling always is that, wow, I must be like the person number 3,000 this year looking at the same asset. And I'm sure that the folks on the side of PitchBook can probably see the frequency of visits per company. Like, oh my God, these guys are like children playing football, right? When there's just toddlers chasing the ball around in the group, right? So you get one asset, which is massively oversubscribed, as 100 NDAs, 20 first-round bids, and there's probably 10 other businesses in UK that are just as good, right? Probably could be really great PE deals, but because they didn't fall on the right kind of marketing track of being sold by Rothschilds or Arma partners, they get a lot less attention, and as a result, a lot less capital, etc. Yeah. So I always felt that actually having some sort of a proprietary thing like that is actually really right, is the way to generate alpha, right? Because you're really finding things that are truly, truly off market.
And we talk about the concept with our clients of the shape of your data, and you need a broader aperture so that you're not missing opportunities, especially not the lesser known or lesser covered opportunities. Yeah. So in order to get that breadth, you need a combination of data sources. So we always advocate for a mix of 3, 4, 5, 6 of the aforementioned. In fact, one of our clients has 8, for example.
Okay, well.
You don't need 8. I would say 4 or 5 with their different strengths and weaknesses to give you that coverage. So that's the breadth, but you also need the depth, and that's where you get the 360 view with deals, financials, people data, and news.
Mm-hmm. And just to follow up a little bit on that, how does your origination or kind of deal team need to be set up in order to really take full advantage of this kind of a software technology, right? Because I'm assuming it's really great to have a list of 100 assets that have been scored and that are perfect for my investment fund. But unless I do something about it, right, that is just an analysis, right? I'm assuming it's really helpful probably to follow up with some sort of a business development-like effort, right? To send an email to the founder, etc., to actually be introduced?
Yeah, well, you can still do your as-is follow-up process, whatever that might be. We're starting to integrate with tools like Outreach. We can automate some of that. That's been popular in the US, where they do a bit more spray and pray compared to European. One thing we've built for one of our US clients using Gen AI tech is building on the insight we've given to the deal maker from their internal proprietary signals. So to be clear, this is their firm's own insight. We've just enabled it with the tools. An action or an activity or a signal from a target that warrants an action. And we've implemented a button which is effectively take action. In the case of the client in question, that then creates a dummy email using Gen AI, which I'm sure you've played around with, to take the information that we've gleaned from the news or new financials or new non-exec to write a pithy but to the point draft email, so the deal maker just goes in and tweaks a few things like you do with ChatGPT, and then sends it off to the target. And of course, you've got the email address of the CEO or the chairman, because that's in your internal database, either because we've scraped it from the website of the target company, which is a data source we pull in, or because that's in your CRM.
Because I've had interactions with them already from Outlook, right?
Yes, which brings us on to the CRM, because that is another key part of the data mix that you're building on the market. A CRM, as you know well, is about driving better, closer client relationships and giving them a better experience before the sale and after sale. And it's got the workflow to enable that, and it's been honed for private equity in tools like ListAlpha. We have strategically decided we're not playing in the space of CRMs. It's competitive enough, as you're aware, already, and that is not our workflow that we enable. But the combination of Syfter with the market intelligence that it gives you, the signals and the proprietary AI we train for each of our clients, coupled with all the functionality and proprietary know-how in the CRM, is the dream combination for your internal stack.
Yeah. To get both right? That's when you read.
Yeah, they're absolutely complementary, and they are bidirectional in their integration.
Yeah.
Which means we put an intelligent filter, or allow our clients to have an intelligent filter between their market data and what gets piped into the CRM. So that's enriching, and then you've got more signals from the market to play with in your CRM tool. And the other direction is we can take data points like time since last interaction from the CRM to prompt the deal maker to take an action, because we haven't spoken to company X for 4 months, according to the CRM. And we've just seen that they've added a non-exec, they've opened a new office in the US.
Right, so those two signals overlap together, and that's clearly an action needs to be taken at that stage, right?
Exactly.
And one is external, one is internal. Yeah, no, I completely agree, right? Because those are probably the biggest components of private equity software tech, right? If you're trying to use the kind of standard jargon, like what is the tech stack, particularly in deal teams? Fundamentally, it's the CRM or deal flow management, and then there's the intelligence that indicates what is a good asset, right? And the two have to combine together, and which is the reason why you should probably mention that we are working on integration together, right? And really looking forward to partnering with you to making that integration much tighter and to really bring like a cutting edge product to the market. But just to dive deeper on that example that you mentioned, so in the case where that signal is combined, I guess what is a good practice? I can then, as a deal team lead, send an email to the CEO or founder of the target and say that, hey, we haven't caught up in 4 months. I also just saw that you appointed a new non-exec chairman. Perhaps it's good to reintroduce our investment fund and our strategy and see if we can do some kind of partnership. I'm assuming that's probably what best looks. That's really good outcome, right?
Yeah, and if you had all the analysts in the world, you would be tracking the website of all your potential targets for the announcement of a new non-exec, which typically goes out on the website. But because we're scraping all the marketing websites or all the URLs of every company in your top of funnel, as soon as we see a signal like that, the deal maker is alerted. And therefore, from a target experience point of view, it's your PE firm that is the first in line, the first to send them a message. And, oh, right, they really care about us.
They really care, right? Yeah. But basically what you're showing is that the relationship is important.
Exactly.
Right? Because you're aware of the time frames and they're aware of the recent events, which is definitely how, if somebody's looking to invest into ListAlpha, I would want to be treated, right? You want to partner with people who really care about your business, right?
And this is equally true of our investment banking, our corporate finance clients, because they are looking to win mandates. And so being the first corporate finance banker that pings them after an interesting announcement,
it's the same.
It's the same.
Effect, right?
They care about us. They're front of the queue. They're going to take the call from you. Yeah. If you're the fourth to get in touch and they're relating to news that went out a month ago.
And clearly you're not paying attention, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, got it. Okay, that's very helpful. And maybe could we talk a little bit about your, I guess as a company, what are your core customer segments or types that you work with? We talked a little bit about private equity. You mentioned investment banking. Are those the main ones?
And we're starting to break into VC as well. Okay. So private equity has been our heritage. We started building in-house platforms back in 2017. Actually, exactly the same time when EQT started building Motherbrain, we were approached by a UK private equity firm to build their Motherbrain. Okay. So exactly the same use case. Integrate our market data into an internal top of funnel market database, integrate it in their case with Salesforce, create deal flow for us. They were doubling their assets under management, just launched a new fund. They wanted to keep the same size analyst team.
So they without expanding like an army of of juniors to track every single company that's
Exactly
every news
that.
event that occurs.
Exactly that. So it was efficiency, so 2x the efficiency, but they also wanted efficacy. They wanted deals that no one else had picked up in the market.
Okay, got it. Could you tell me a little bit about the founding story of Filament as a company?
Yeah, so I had a 16-year corporate career. First at BA Systems, where I was commercializing aeronautics tech. So commercializing underwater unmanned vehicles was one of my gigs. And then taking hybrid electric engines that have been built for military applications and looking for commercial non-military applications. So I found myself aged 26 deploying hybrid electric plants engines onto Manhattan buses, upstate New York, working with a pretty rugged engineering team. So I was very much a fish out of water. And then going into downtown Manhattan and negotiating with the bus depots.
Yeah.
And you can imagine that kind of folks that run best.
The characters, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So that was a good growing up experience.
Okay.
But it kind of sparked and was starting to kindle my entrepreneurial instincts. I then went and did a full-time MBA, part-time in Europe at IESE Business School in Barcelona, part-time at Columbia Business School in New York. So I would say the best of both. European schools are incredible on the teaching side. North American schools are incredible on the networking side.
Yeah, obviously New York being kind of the major hub.
The hub.
Well, yeah.
And sure enough, through CBS, through Columbia, I got my next role at IBM, right at the dawn of the Watson AI era. Okay. So that was a lucky break.
Yeah. And is that where you were first exposed to AI, or back then it was probably would have been called data science, machine learning, and kind of industry applications of that technology?
Yeah, so I mean, the story for AI goes all the way back to Turing and the middle of last century, and it's had various peaks and troughs. They call it the AI winter when it suddenly fell out of fashion previously. So actually, we think over the last 12 years there's been peaks and troughs, but it's been a lot longer as a timeline. But 2012 was quite significant because this is when IBM released Watson, and it was victorious in a game show, Jeopardy, which is better known in the US than in Europe. But it was successful in beating a chap called Keith Jennings, who was the human champion of Jeopardy.
Okay.
As with all these PR stunts, it was demonstrating a state-of-the-art technology that had reached a point that was now ready for valuable business applications, which of course was IBM's reason for launching it. And that was two things really. One, the compute power was sufficient that they could enable machine learning at enough speed to be able to turn around what was called subjective decision making. So like any game show, it's not like a maths problem. It's not a binary 100% answer. It's going to be subjective. And the second key technology was natural language processing. So understanding the question from the quiz show host, interpreting it, run the subjective algorithm, and then giving an answer with sufficient confidence as to win the points in the game show.
And to beat a human. And from memory, Jeopardy, I can't remember the actual format of the game. Are you relying on external knowledge about the world? Do you have to know facts about history, or are you just judging things that are presented to you in that moment?
No, it's actually a very simple general knowledge quiz across multiple topics: history, geography, politics, etc. And its only quirk is they give you the answer and you have to respond with the question.
Oh, it's the question is format. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, got it. Probably exposing a terrible gap in my popular culture knowledge right now. So that would have been I guess one of the steps in that long continuation, right? Because I think there was chess first with, I think, Deep Blue.
Deep Blue in the early 90s.
Those were in the 90s, right? Mm. Then it would have been Jeopardy. Then there would have been Go.
Yeah.
And then there would have been Dota, and now it's just kind of slowly all of our jobs, one by one. But I guess that would have been one of the earlier kind of big wins for for that team, for Watson? And did that kind of inspire you to say, okay, wow, this is really taking off. I would like to get involved.
Yeah, well, actually, a lot of the use cases we see today are NLP related, and actually large language models are just a derivative of that NLP passage of progress. And it's probably relevant to say that progress is steady. It's just every now and again you get a drop, or like ChatGPT did, where there is an application of the technology that suddenly captures the mass market attention.
Right. So it's more like it's been productized and worked on for 3 years, and it seems like a big jump in capabilities, but behind the scenes it's probably just continuous kind of growth in capabilities and the coding behind it.
And exactly, and when people talk about AI, sometimes they're referring to the product, the application that's been built, such as ChatGPT for the masses. And sometimes they're talking about the underlying tech, the large language models that power those applications.
Okay, the actual thing that's running on the NVIDIA server somewhere in the data center.
And this is a key point about the value chain in AI. It's a little different to conventional software because the machine learning models can be very good generalists, but for a business to really take full advantage, they need to train it on their proprietary data. And therefore, the prerequisite for that is for you to start accumulating your internal proprietary data. So one of the philosophies of Syfter is that we're helping our private equity clients to accumulate that data set, to interact with it, and to layer in at first just rules-based logic to scrutinize the data looking for signals. And then through the interactions of the analysts and the deal makers, when they accept or reject recommended companies, for example, you're effectively, in AI terms, you're annotating that data set. You're creating a ground truth that is proprietary within the firewall of the fund. And it's on that ground truth that you can then train their AI. So when we are talking about AI for private equity, there's the fact that our product, your product, all of the data platforms we talked about earlier, they're all using AI to make their product better. And that's part of their IP. But a PE firm needs to think about how they're going to get their alpha, and that means acquiring their data and training their proprietary AI. And that is the unique thing about the AI value chain. Because you need a partner, or you need to have a strategy that is enabling you to build up that data set and then the tools to train your proprietary AI.
Yeah, and this rings really close to my heart, because I always found, now that we're working with PE funds, that the things that I always try to encourage our customers to do is to build out that internal data set, right? Which is where we say, make sure to digitize all of your notes with M&A advisors, right? So when there's an introduction of 7-10 assets, comments around EV, EBITDA, revenue, growth rates, founders, they cannot live in a notepad. They have to live in a platform, because that is an information that you can then cross-tag against assets. Yes. You can then share across deal teams. And when the same company comes around in 3 or 4 years' time, when you look at another asset in the same industry, you have now become a much more educated and smarter investor as a result. And that, to me, is definitely the core of private equity, right? Is learning from your experiences and becoming better, improving your judgment, and thus getting better returns. I think what you just said is actually a very kind of software AI extension of that, right? Because there's only so much I can do as a human, as an individual, right? Because if you're, finite memory, people also leave from the fund. But what ideally you'd like to be doing is actually training your kind of buy-side model in your own judgment and your own style, and also in the perimeter that you look at, and say, can you allow me to automate and actually be better at my kind of origination investing, but with the help of artificial intelligence rather than just associates, vice presidents, and ICs, right?
And to put it in a catchy phrase, and my team always take the mickey out of me for this, I always say this, bottling your IP. That is essentially our value prop. It's bottling the genuine intellectual property of every fund into AI models that they own.
And they're theirs, and they can be continuously trained based on their interactions with them, right?
Running 24/7, 365 to score every opportunity in the proprietary way that's been tuned on their thesis.
Yeah, that's amazing. And now that the mass adoption, consumer adoption of things like ChatGPT or even GPT-4 has occurred, do you feel like that pitch and that sales position is received a lot better by PE funds because they understand it? They're like, oh yeah, I get what an AI model now is, because maybe 5 years ago it was just kind of almost magic. Right?
Yeah, I think this ownership point that I talked about is not quite fully understood yet. This need to have your own data set and run the internal LLM technology, whichever one you go with, on that internal data set. And I also want to think just broader than just your market data or even your CRM data. Mm-hmm. If you think of a fund, they've essentially got 4, maybe 5 big buckets of data. There's everything they're collecting on the market through a tool like Syfter, aggregating third-party, paid-for and free data sets. Yeah. There's everything that their team is capturing in the CRM, which is very high-touch, personalized, hugely valuable data. There is everything they're collecting on their portfolio company, and that goes into the detail of management accounts and is very fine-grained.
Like board packs, EBITDA, performance, etc.
Exactly. And then they've got everything that's in their document management systems, which will be expert interviews, SIMs, analyst reports. So those are the big buckets. Now, what we're seeing with our most advanced clients is we're enabling them to extract our data, extract the data, their data that they keep in the Syfter database, extract what they've got in the CRM, extract what they've got in the portfolio management, and extract what they've got in the document management, so SharePoint, into a central data lake that they're then running their internal LLMs. Okay. So that is like, if you imagine the cortex of the brain, that is the central intelligence where you've got all of the intellectual property of the firm. And if you can ask an elegant question to that, then you really are tapping the central nervous cord of the fund.
To me that is extremely important. Right? We've been thinking quite a lot about that at ListAlpha recently, is kind of packaging that in some sort of a software kind of product where fundamentally asking an LLM about your origination or around kind of deal discovery is kind of equivalent to asking them about, well, which one of my portfolio companies is underperforming, right? It was equivalent to, like, fundamentally, I think, do you think we'll have in like 5 or 10 years' time some sort of a GPT or some sort of an AI model that actually is the fund, that is the firm, that knows whether IHR was late for work this morning, right? Knows whether IHR forgot to email PwC last week in order to ask some question about, FDD adjustments, etc. Is that kind of where we're going to?
That is the natural extension of where we're going with this. I mean, the point on all of the players, all of the tech stack are building their LLM or ChatGPT-like interface into their pocket of intelligence. But actually, you don't need just one on the CRM, just one on the market intelligence, just one on the portfolio intelligence. You need one that aggregates them all.
Exactly, yeah, and it kind of is the counterparty to you, whether you're the managing director or the partner of the firm, etc.
So if you're a CTO, particularly of the bigger funds, you're thinking, what is my tech stack? Right? And so I need to pick my CRM, I need to pick my portfolio management platform, I need to pick my document management platform, and I need to pick my market intelligence aggregation platform. And that's where the dream stack at the moment is starting to take shape in a few of the clients, and we've seen that play out.
And what do you think will be the near-term state? So it'll be those best-of-breed 4 or 5 platforms. But I think what we just discussed is there's probably room for another thing that is like the intelligence layer that sits on top, right? Or the kind of the AI, the cortex, whatever the cognitive stack that basically is able to talk to all of them, and then allows you to do some of the more complex thinking and judgment across all of those pillars, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that sort of macro integrator is probably one of the big big players, your Amazon, your Microsoft, your Google. There's probably I mentioned there might be a fifth bucket of data. That's probably your HR systems. You mentioned. So then you've really got a centralized brain that can run your fund or run any company. To be honest, we're talking about as a private equity context, but that's going to be playing out in every single vertical.
Yeah, in every industry, you could be for a manufacturing company or for a software company or for anything else.
And one thing I would note is that there are lots of data integration plays, but if you're a generic data integration play, then someone's got to configure you to each vertical. And so that's where the professional services industry comes in. Whereas what I'm seeing is verticalized solutions, such as what we're doing in private equity and private markets more broadly. And there will be equivalent filament sifters in the different vertical, specializing in shipping data, consumer data, etc.
Yeah, and I guess the question there is, do you build a kind of a general cross-industry, or what's called horizontal platform that just applies everywhere, which I'm sure, which is what Microsoft Copilot and others will kind of evolve in. But their limitation will always be that they don't understand private equity, right? Or they're just not very suited for private equity, right? Kind of very hard to use something that somebody uses in a coffee shop for the context of private equity, and that is the opportunity for kind of for players like us, right? Is to
and in your world, Salesforce is the generic equivalent, and
exactly, and it's awful, right? It just doesn't work. You can try to use it, but it's painful. And after 2 or 3 years, you usually give up and say, okay, come on, give me something else, and you go to ListAlpha or DealCloud or Affinity.
Or private equity spend a small fortune tailoring Salesforce to their specific workflow, and then it's stuck, right? Because there's sunk cost there.
There's so much more to talk about there, but maybe we'll save it for another podcast, because it's genuinely quite interesting stuff. Could you tell us a little bit about when you work with your customers, what are the journey that you walk them through in order to develop these kind of capabilities, right? I think you mentioned before, there's get the basic data, then enrich it, then try to train it, and then get the insights. Could you just walk us through this if I was a CTO or partner at a P fund trying to be better at this?
Yes. So let me start by saying that time to value has been the key driver, the KPI that my product team have been working on over the 7 years. It's crucial that the private equity firm or the investment bank starts to see a return, starts to see value as early as possible. So in any white label platform you're deploying in-house, that is something that there are stakeholders that want to see the return on investment. So the journey starts with some operational benefits within the first month. So first of all, aggregating their data into one view. So the analyst doesn't have to go to 5, 6, 7 different seats on different platforms. They can see all their aggregated data on a target in one single profile.
Right, so that's more like administrative efficiency, just doing your job faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But under the scenes, what you've got now is an in-house database which has got everything we know about that target, with the company target as the central entity of that database, which means you have a richness of data that you can train scores on that target, which is the beginning of this proprietary AI journey. Now, those scores, for example, their international expansion score, or their IP differentiation score, or their leadership score, those are derivatives of everything you've accumulated about the business, their financial, their deal history, their people, their news. And so the first 2 months, let's say, you're using those rules-based scores to start prioritizing targets that get prioritized to your origination team, so net new targets, or prioritizing signals that are relevant to your deal makers. So by the end of month 1, you're getting value. And those deal makers actually rarely log in to their Syfter platform. They probably rarely log into the CRM. So we actually deliver the insights from those signals to their inbox.
Through an email. You say, here are the top things for you that we found.
Exactly. And that's tailored to each deal maker on the companies that they track in the CRM. that they're responsible for, and the subsector that they cover.
Got it. And maybe really quickly on a scoring of assets, how complicated can that get? Right? Because it's a really fascinating concept, right? You can basically take something that's so unstructured and so hard to judge, right? I mean, the very core of private equity is this really complicated question of, is this a good business or bad business, right? That's what everybody struggles with, right? And I guess you try to break it down into individual components, factors, and then quantify them, right? From 0 to 10, and then group them together through weights. What kind of flavors of things have you seen in this industry?
Yeah, so if you take IP differentiation as a factor that might be part of your thesis, that you're looking for tech or not just software tech, but broader tech businesses that have a differentiated IP, how would you look for that in market signals?
Yeah, I guess it would be patents or sort of filings.
Yes,
which are quite hard signals, right? Because it's a filing that happens with the patent office.
Well, one of the proxies that we use for that is both the language they use in their description of themselves. Now, obviously, that's biased, but you do get a bit of a flavor as if they're a IP-based business. How they're talked about in the market, so how other people are talking about them in the news. How they're covered by Gartner and Forrester. So those, and how many IP-related job roles are within their headcount.
Okay, so it's like a hard R&D job.
Exactly.
Engineer or... And
you aggregate those different things, and you don't have to use machine learning in the first instance. You can just say, okay, if there's more than 20% in R&D roles, then they're probably high IP.
And the score increases for that category.
If I've picked up 3 or more mentions in the news about their IP or leadership in a particular segment, then I'm going to give them 4 out of 5 stars. So you aggregate those into a rules-based score, step 1. Off the back of it, you start using that to prioritize the attention of your origination team. When they're giving attention to the ones that, from a scoring point of view, have come up top 10, there may be 6 hits and 4 misses. And as they mark the hits thumbs up and they mark the misses thumbs down, and they give reasons for that, you're starting to build up enriched data on your database. And to be clear, that is all within the firewall, that is all owned enriched data of the fund. That is what is called in AI circles ground truth, training data for them to then train a machine learning approach to answer the same problem. And then you go from 6 out of 10 hits in the first few months to an aspiration of 8 out of 10 and higher quality hits thereafter. And this is the point. It is a journey. The CTO needs to be thinking, accumulate data, start using rules-based scoring, move to AI-based scoring.
Yeah. But I guess in the context of this trend that data is becoming more scarce, or unique data is becoming more scarce, because the likes of Microsoft and OpenAI have hoovered up all the publicly available data, right? Any kind of investments into your proprietary ground truth that is yours, it's probably a very valid one, right? It is something that in the long run will create a differentiation, a moat, really for any company, but particularly in private equity where it's so subjective, right? Where that judgment is very proprietary.
So I just want to pick up on whether Microsoft and Google are hoovering up the market data. I don't think they are entirely. So those ChatGPT systems are trained on the internet from 6 months ago. They're not a market intelligence solution. They are a very clever way of manipulating language and capturing knowledge from the internet effectively. What you're paying for when you pay for CapIQ or SourceGraph or Valuate and PitchBook, that is data that you're paying for it for a good reason. You can't find that free. There is stuff you can merge with it that you can get free. So what can you get free? You can scrape the website of every target in 500,000 companies you might want to invest in. The use case we discussed earlier. Yeah. You can effectively do a Google search on every company. You can merge all that news with everything that you want to pay for. You might want to pay for a premium news source like Factiva to give you even more coverage if the ROI is there. But you are effectively bringing that data in-house merging it with your proprietary, what's in your CRM, the notes you took on that business. Let me give you a use case here. Somewhere in the notes, someone chatted to the CFO to say, we will be looking for a funding round once we get a patent for this bit of tech, or once we land our first team in North America. Couple that with a news article saying that has happened, and that is the trigger for your deal maker to be front of the queue to send them the email, the approach, the phone call.
Got it, yeah. So it is far more complicated in the structure and the value of the data than kind of an off-the-shelf solution from OpenAI or Microsoft.
Yeah, they are horizontal players like we talked about earlier.
Right.
They will be the toolkit for everyone to build your sort of central nervous system. But almost by definition, they're not specialists, they're not verticalized. So it will be a combination of the horizontal players coupled with specialist vertical solutions.
Yeah, got it. Maybe a little bit about just the business as it stands, I guess just the journey of the entrepreneur. How large is the business now in terms of number of customers or staff?
Yeah, 34 people, 18 customers, very high touch, valued relationships with those customers. They advocate us to new clients. Most of them are private equity. We've got a couple of investment banks. We've just started working with the first big four corporate finance team. Same value prop, efficiency, productivity of the analyst team, allowing them to add more value to the business over and above the grunt work. And yeah, winning mandates in their case because they're a corporate finance team.
Yeah, so for them it's about kind of getting the relationships. Also wanted to ask, what are your goals as a business for the next 5 years?
Yeah, we've just raised a funding round ourselves. We're expanding into the US. We're putting boots on the ground in the US. We've got a product that is agnostic to the territory. So we can integrate the US mix of data, which is slightly different to Europe. But as the tool set to enable a private equity to build an in-house platform, it's equally valid in every territory and every strategy.
Right. And arguably probably even more valuable in the US because the level of public disclosure is a lot lower. They don't have a company's house equivalent, etc.
Yeah, and there are 3,500 private equity firms worldwide, and growing.
Yeah.
Ever more competitive, and we are positioning ourselves for a good share of that market.
Mm-hmm. Got it. In your journey as an entrepreneur and founder, what has been the most challenging day that you can remember? And then the counter to that is, what has been the best?
Yeah, worst day was, I think it was the 20th of March 2020.
Okay.
So when we realized COVID was taking hold, a couple of our clients said, we've just got to put our contract on hold. I had to tell the team we took a very socialist approach, and everyone took a pay cut to survive those few months. We got through it, and the loyalty that engendered and the bonding that engendered was incredible. And we do have a very, very loyal, dedicated, and highly skilled team. That was a worst moment, but we got through it. The highlight, I think, was it all happened in the space of a couple of weeks. We secured our first external funding, meant we could truly execute on our ARR strategy. We secured our first US client, so proved the hypothesis that the product was equally valid in the North American market.
Mm-hmm. Which is quite exciting because it opens up this huge growth vector, right?
Absolutely. And in the same couple of weeks, coupled with some really good hires into our data science team and our engineering team and our go-to-market team.
Okay, so it goes up and down quite quickly, right?
Indeed, yes.
I have a founder. Well, Phil, thank you so much for coming. It's been fascinating and really great to talk to you about the industry, and I look forward to working more with you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.